Tonight I'm taking you for a ride on board a sleeper train you probably never have heard of. This is the longest train ride in the Caucasus, the seasonal 18-hour journey from Georgia's Black Sea coast through the dramatic Caucasus mountains all the way to Armenia's capital city, Yerevan. Join me in this video for the epic 18-hour ride as we travel on Armenia's new and modern sleeper train carriages imported straight from Russia. I'll show you everything the train has to offer, from my private first-class cabin to the warm onboard showers, on this stunning journey across the Caucasus. Our journey starts here at Batumi's modern-looking railway station, which opened back in 2015, replacing the much older station that was actually conveniently located in the city center. Nowadays, the modern station sits around 4 kilometers away, and you'll have to go by car or rideshare here, or you can take the local bus. Right, let's head inside the station building and check it out. It has actually improved quite a bit since the first time I visited here, as there's actually some shops and facilities now. Although a real estate agent being the first thing you see when you walk in is certainly a choice. But if you walk down this corridor past the public services hall, you will actually find a cafe now, something that was missing when I first visited the station in 2024. There's also a ticket office here next to the cafe, but I would recommend buying ahead online, as this train can very easily sell out, especially at the height of summer. Anyway, let's now head through to the platforms. Our sleeper train is already here and currently boarding well over 30 minutes before departure, having come in this morning on the overnight service from Yerevan. Parked next to us is one of Georgian Railway's modern double-decker trains built by Swiss manufacturer Stadler. They were delivered in 2015 and are used on the busy Batumi to Tbilisi route. And wow, take a look at this windscreen. I certainly hope they find a spare part for this soon. However, our train consists entirely of these newer Russian-made sleeper carriages, which were delivered brand new to Armenia's South Caucasus Railway in 2021. Or perhaps I should say delivered to the Russian railways, because Armenia's railway network is fully run by them. Which is also why these carriages wear a livery nearly identical to the trains you'll find across Russia. Hauling our train tonight is by comparison this rather ancient Armenian VL10 locomotive. More than 2,000 of these were built across the former Soviet Union, with our example being manufactured at the Tbilisi Electric Works in 1969 and is capable of 100 km per hour. Right, enough waiting around, let's finally go board this train. Before getting on board, you'll need to show your ID to the carriage attendant, who will then check you off the passenger manifest, and then you're free to head to your room. Tonight I've booked the highest class of travel, which is a private first-class compartment for 2 passengers, which I have to say actually looks really nice. Waiting in the room at departure time is a fresh set of bedding alongside an amenity kit. You'll also find a couple of pillows stored above the corridor, which is also a handy space to put your luggage. We'll take a closer look at the compartment later during the journey, but if you're curious about the other options of travel offered on board, there's also the 4-person compartments, which are nearly identical, well except the addition of 2 upper bunks. And finally, the cheapest option is the classic Platzkart with basic bunks in a completely open layout. Anyway, it's now 14:47 and our train is ready for departure, just 2 minutes behind schedule, as we begin this mammoth 18-hour journey to the Armenian capital. And the journey out of Batumi is already really nice, as our train follows the Black Sea coast, passing a couple of seaside hotels where no doubt some of tonight's passengers will have been staying. Our first station stop is just a couple of minutes later at Makinyawi, which used to be the terminus of passenger trains to Batumi from 1996 to 2015 when the new station opened. And with our rail journey now well underway, let's now turn our attention to the route map for tonight's trip. We are catching train number 201, which leaves from Batumi and first makes several stops along the Black Sea coast before heading inland, traveling across almost the entire length of Georgia. We'll have an extended stop in the capital of Georgia, Tbilisi, before continuing overnight across the border into Armenia, arriving in Yerevan the following morning. The entire trip is scheduled to take 18 hours and 14 minutes, covering 717 kilometers, giving the train an average speed of just 39 kilometers per hour. What a beautiful day to be traveling by train, with the bright sun offering us some great views of the blue water and the beaches. And if we look on the other side of the train, the Caucasus mountains are even visible in the distance. Next, our train stops at Kobuleti, where we are scheduled to wait for 11 minutes, seemingly to meet with a train that no longer exists. I guess you could call that a ghost train. And as our journey now continues up to the last stop along the coast, let's take a closer look at the welcome kit. This contained a bottle of water as well as a cup, and you'll also get a pouch full of toiletries as well as slippers, which will come in handy for the shower later, alongside the towel from the bedding kit. The line down to Batumi is mostly single track, which can cause some problems when trains are running late. So we ended up waiting at this small station for a while before the signalers seemingly realized the train we were waiting for was running late, and in the end they moved the crossing up to the next passing point. That's at least my theory, because we then moved on to the next station with a crossing point, and here we see one of the Georgian Railway's Likhi trains waiting for us, with this unit in particular working the late morning departure from Tbilisi. Our journey now continues a few kilometers north to our next scheduled stop at Ureki. This is the last of the coastal towns our train will make a stop at, because shortly after leaving the station here, the railway turns inland to head across the country towards Tbilisi. For the next couple of hours, the journey is actually pretty straightforward, as we cross the flat plains of western Georgia between the greater and lesser Caucasus mountains. But the scenery and the railway will get a lot more dramatic later on. So for now, let's have a look around our first class cabin. In theory, these compartments can even be locked from the outside using a keycard, but I've heard that the Armenians are not using this feature, so you can only lock it from the inside using the manual lock. This new kind of sleeper car is still in a pretty good state, with plenty of space to store your bags above the corridor and below the seats that'll become our beds later. There was also this weird television that neither showed any form of television or journey information and just seemed pretty useless. As for the rest of the compartment, standard features like coat hooks as well as an attendant call button are both present. There's even these retractable steps to help you get into the upper bunks that are not present in the first class cabins. The seats that'll become our beds later tonight are decently comfortable. They got a small winged headrest and are decently padded too. Not revolutionary stuff, but it was comfortable enough. There's also 4 power outlets in every cabin, as well as this sizable table. I really like the flap out wings here, which can expand the size of it, making it very easy to work on your laptop or maybe play a board game. It's a long journey, you'll want some entertainment. And finally, take a look at all these hidden storage compartments. There's even a safe in here to leave your valuables, something I've not seen on many sleeper trains. There's a couple more of these. This one is handy for hanging a wet towel, and the one next to it is just for general storage. The compartment is clean, comfortable and functional, even if I find the design perhaps a little utilitarian. But the real test will of course be to see how well it holds up after 18 hours and a night of sleep on board. Our train is now coming into Samtradia 1 railway station, a major junction where the line from Batumi meets the routes from the port city of Poti and the western Georgian city of Sugdidi. But as both Sugdidi and Poti only see one long distance passenger train a day, this place isn't exactly full of train traffic. In general, Georgia's railway network has shrunk considerably over the past 2 and 3 decades, with many smaller branch lines and lesser used infrastructure falling into complete disrepair. Today, the focus seems mostly to be on freight alongside the Tbilisi to Batumi route, which currently sees up to 4 daily trains. We are now passing the branch line into Kutaisi, which is Georgia's second largest city. Interestingly enough, our train actually doesn't stop right after it at Rioni, which basically acts as the city's mainline station. And we don't stop at Kutaisi airport either, meaning that this sleeper train that basically goes right next to Georgia's second largest city doesn't serve it at all. Our next stop will instead be Sestafoni, which is actually quite important for our journey today, because after the stop here, we'll start heading into the mountains and reach what I think is the best scenery of the trip. We are now entering the Likhi mountains, which acts as a divide between eastern and western Georgia. Not just physically, but also as a major watershed, as rivers on one side flow towards the Black Sea where we just came from, while on the other they will flow towards the Caspian. Even here deep in the mountains there are still many smaller stations, which are served by just 2 daily local trains. And this local train in particular is actually very interesting, as it uses a powerful 2-part VL11 locomotive to haul just 1 carriage around. At least it won't struggle to climb the mountain pass, I guess. We are now on the most challenging part of the route, as we pass through the recently modernized Moliti station. This construction is part of a massive modernization of the railway corridor through the mountains. At the center of this is a brand new 8.3 km long tunnel under the most challenging part of the route, which has just opened this year. However, when I took this trip, the old line was still in use, offering us some spectacular views of the mountains as we crossed the aging viaducts and other infrastructure, with parts of the alignment dating back to the opening way back in 1872. But as scenic as the old line is, it is also great to see some proper investment going into Georgia's railway network after decades of neglect. And with much of this new infrastructure now in operation, journey times between Tbilisi and Batumi has been cut by around 40 minutes. We rejoined with the new line through the tunnel just before Khashuri station, which is also our next stop. It's a fairly modest town, but an important railway junction that has long played a major role in Georgia's railway network, as the station is also the branching point for the line down towards Batumi that even continues to the Turkish border, albeit without passenger service. Our train will now pick up the pace as we start running non-stop all the way to Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. And now that we are also back out onto the plains, we can finally get up to some serious speed again. Well, at least around 100 km per hour. Unfortunately, there's not a dining car on this sleeper train, but even these newer sleeper carriages are equipped with a classic feature common across many older sleeper trains in the former Soviet Union: the public boiling water dispenser, which is perfect for heating up my dinner tonight, some cup noodles from a supermarket in Batumi. I mean, it's not going to be the most filling meal in the world, but it's nice to be able to make something warm on board, or even just a cup of tea. As I slowly finish up my gourmet dinner, our train glides into the sunset across the plains. And with the last bit of daylight now almost gone, let's go check out the shared toilet and shower facilities. And honestly, these were great. Not only was the space, well, spacious, it was also spotlessly clean and very well maintained. Everything was fully functional in here and working as it should. But the best part was just how good the shower actually was. The pressure was on par with at home, and the water even got boiling hot if you so desired. Honestly, it's one of the best showers I've had on a train, and I certainly did not expect that to be the case from a train between Georgia and Armenia. Feeling refreshed, I decided to turn the seat into my bed for the night, which is fairly straightforward, done by releasing this latch and then slowly turning the bunk away from the wall. And then all there's left to do is just to put on the sheets and bedding, and voila, the cabin is ready for bed mode. But it's not quite bedtime yet, as our train is now arriving in Tbilisi a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, and our train has a scheduled stop here of 53 minutes, which does give you plenty of time to get off the train and pick up a late dinner if you so desire. But I just went to the front of our train to have a quick look at our locomotive, which was actually built right here in Tbilisi. I also saw another one of these Georgian Likhi trains that ended up operating an overnight service back to Batumi. Bit of a rough application for this one, given there's no beds on board. And just like that, it's time for us to depart again, now heading off into the night. Unfortunately, the border crossing takes place in the middle of the night, so now I decided to try and get some rest while I still can. And thankfully, the bed is actually looking rather comfortable. The pillow is both well sized and surprisingly plush, while the mattress itself feels nice and soft. So this should make for a comfortable night of rest, but we'll see about that in the morning. Good night. The rest is short-lived, because even with a comfortable bed, there's no escaping the border formalities, which begin just after midnight as we leave Georgia. Here we actually have to get off the train and queue on the platform to be stamped out of the country at a small police booth. Eventually, around an hour later, the checks are complete and our train can continue off into the darkness, slowly trundling across the border towards the first station stop in Armenia. We arrived there around half an hour later at roughly 2 AM. Luckily this time we don't actually have to get off the train and can remain in bed as the Armenian border checks are carried out on board. And finally, after another hour or so, the checks are complete and we are officially continuing into Armenia. So now it's time to get whatever sleep we can for the remainder of the journey. Good morning from Armenia. It's just before 8 AM and we are just about to come into our penultimate stop at Armavir. I slept as well as I could. It's just such a shame that the train is timed this way, because having to do the border checks in the middle of the night just ruins any chance of decent rest. After our station stop in Armavir, the carriage attendant came around to collect our bedding and hand out breakfast. So I converted the bed back into seated mode and enjoyed this rather basic but unexpected cheese and ham sandwich. And not long after, we are already in the suburbs of Yerevan, passing this electric commuter train from 1973, working the summer seasonal service to Lake Sevan. So, as we'll be arriving shortly, let's talk about tickets and my final thoughts. I booked online on the Armenian Railways website and paid 74,000 Armenian dram for the entire room, which covers travel for up to 2 adults. While that's not outrageous for a modern 18-hour sleeper train by European standards, I can't help to think that this must be really expensive for the local population. Still, I really enjoyed my trip on this sleeper train. The new carriages are very comfortable, and if it wasn't for the poorly timed border crossing in the middle of the night, I'm sure I would have gotten a great night's sleep on board too. In the end, our train pulls into Yerevan station at 08:55, running 4 minutes ahead of schedule. And as always, let me know in the comments what you thought of this sleeper train. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as I try to post a new one every Sunday. And if you want to give the channel a little extra support, consider joining the membership program. For just a couple of euros every month, you get early access to all my videos as well as exclusive travel updates. To continue your journey, why not watch my video on Montenegro's last commuter trains built in the Soviet Union by clicking the card on screen now. It's safe to say that these new Armenian carriages are a huge improvement over the older Soviet trains. And as always, thanks for watching.